Hey everybody, welcome back to the Bowfishing Buzz Podcast, Season 1, Episode 3. And this is all about bowfishing tournaments. My name is Matthew, I'm here with my good buddy D. Schmitty.
Hey everybody.
This might be a long podcast.
It might be a little lengthy.
We are joined by our first Bowfishing Buzz guest. We've got the Vice President of the Wisconsin Bowfishing Association here with us. And along with the Vice President, he is a 2018 Wisconsin Bowfishing Association Big 30 Team of the Year Captain, Mr. Jody Bigalke. Congratulations, man. It's a pretty cool honor.
Yeah,
cool deal.
Thank you.
Cool deal.
It's cool to be here.
Well, we appreciate you coming in.
Absolutely.
We've got some beautiful temperatures outside. It's probably -10 right now with the wind chill of 35 below.
Should we go bullfishing tonight? I think I'd like to hit the water.
Good luck with that.
Yeah,
man.
exactly.
Good luck with that in Wisconsin. So we're going to just ask Jody a few questions on some of his tournament stuff and what he does to prepare for tournaments and what he looks for. So we're going to get right into this, Jody. So there's going to shoot you away some questions. So
All right.
the floor is yours, buddy.
Absolutely.
I don't know how many secrets I'm going to give away here, but
We're not expecting any of those. No. Yeah, I'll just run through some of these questions, talk about any side stories, anything that comes to mind. Matt and I are going to chime in as well. We can't help but talk sometimes. So the first question is going to be a very basic one. When did you start the sport of bullfishing?
well, I actually probably shot my first fish with a bow in the late 60s.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
When I was a kid, they used to commercial fish Castle Rock Lake, and one of the things that my uncle and I used to do is, you guys are aware of the canoe launch in the state park.
Yep.
Well, I was there way back then. Obviously, it was just a dirt road, but they used to back semis right into the water, right there at that launch, and they would bring their boats up and unload all the fish into the semis. They had an actual elevator set up, and then the guys with these big John boats would head back out, and we noticed that they had bows in the boat with them.
And these were rough
gosh.
fish.
Yeah, they were taking carp out of there,
Taking
literally by the semi-loads.
Wow.
Oh, my Lord.
And one day when we come out there to watch them, we noticed there was a bow laying on the bank. And what happened was one of the commercial fishermen had set his bow down and left it there. So we picked it up, and actually we come back the next day, and my uncle, I was probably only 6, 8, 9 years old at the time, something like that. And he offered to get, he said, "Hey, we found your bow laying here." In fact, I still have that bow today. 'Cause
Oh,
the guy
my
ended up
goodness.
telling us we could keep it, and it was a Ben Pearson with the old metal brackets and the drop wheel. They called them parallel wheels at the time, and a bare spool on there that you had to hand wind the line on. And he appreciated us trying to give it back to him, but he said, "No, you guys keep it."
Well, that was neat.
Oh, my
That was
gosh.
cool of them.
Because at that time, we're like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
We had no idea.
Yeah,
So,
that had to
it
look
was-
pretty foreign.
Yeah, it was. And people ask me all the time about the size of the carp, and I don't remember. I
Don't remember that.
I just remember that it was literally semi-loads.
Oh, my Lord.
That they would take out of there.
Oh,
So that body of water has been infested with carp. Even back in they were taking truckloads out back in the 60s.
It actually got really bad then right after they quit doing that.
No
is
kidding,
when it
sure.
got really bad.
Yeah.
In fact, I can remember in the 70s we had a meeting at the local Legion where the DNR came, and they were trying to get local sportsmen trying to figure out what to do with the carp population in the lake. And that was obviously pre-nighttime bowfishing was not a thing then.
wow.
Well, a bad thing for Castle Rock, but a good thing for us bowfishers.
Yeah. I wish we were doing this back then.
Yeah,
that
no
would be
kidding.
a blast. Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's very interesting. The second question, Jody, is when did you start competing in bowfishing tournaments?
I think the first time that we shot a tournament was probably in 2014. That year we had, I had took my old trapping boat and built a deck on it, and I always had either my daughter or some other kid, and we would go out fishing, and then we noticed that people were doing it at night, and so we started rigging up little 27 watt 12 volt lights on the boat, and we heard about it. There was going to be a tournament on Castle Rock Lake, and we're like, wow, we can do that.
That's your body. That's your home body water, right?
Back then, I had a little 16-foot John boat with a deck on it, and I actually would stand in the back and push around with a push pole while Tess and Noah would shoot, and we decided to go shoot the tournament, and believe it or not, we shot 7 fish.
Seven fish.
And we shot one before it got dark, and one during the night, and then I don't know if you remember, but that year it got really cold and the fish just disappeared. And of course, back then we had no idea. And I was pulling that boat with my Jeep. My little Jeep, And we put that boat in about 5 different spots, We thought, wow, we can get into spots. All these guys with these big fancy boats, they're not going to be in there, And actually, the canoe launch again, we put in there just before it started getting light in the morning. And we thought, look at that guy over there. He's stuck. He's way back in the cattails with that noisy ass boat, Well, here, that's where the fish were. Was back in the cattails because we didn't know. So we actually, I push-poled the boat back into the cattails a little bit, and they would shoot at the wiggles,
Yeah.
We ended up with 7 fish. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
But you know what? I know when we got back to the weigh-in, them guys didn't want to weigh them fish in, and I said, no, that's part of the deal, And we weighed them fish in, and because we weighed them fish in, we didn't finish last.
That's right.
There you go.
There was probably 6 or 7 teams that didn't weigh anything in, because they were embarrassed about what they shot.
Sure. And that's part of the game.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
If you're going to get in it,
Well, it's part of the deal.
Right.
I mean, the tournament's not over till you weigh your fish in, you know?
Yep. Not only that, but to see the other teams that are coming and to see what they did, to see how their night went,
Oh, absolutely.
To congratulate those teams. And that's where you meet a lot of new friends in bowfishing also.
Absolutely.
At bowfishing tournaments.
I know, I've heard a lot of stories of guys who go out tournament night, they have a bad night of bowfishing, they think, we're not going to do anything at weigh-in, let's just go home. Well, here to find out, all the other teams had a rough night too. It was just a tough night on the water.
Yeah.
And here they find out, at tournaments they're always giving stuff away. Maybe they even happen to place in the money somewhere. Or maybe they won a drawing of some kind that they didn't get to have because they didn't think that it was worth it to go back to weigh-in. We hear stuff like that all the time.
They realize, man, we could have taken 5th or 4th and got some gas money.
Exactly.
I actually have seen that a lot where guys have left and they would have placed. And
So when you're shooting in a bowfishing tournament, no matter what, go back to weigh-in. You never know what the night was like for everybody else.
Right. Yeah. Next question here, Jody. Have you traveled outside of your home state to compete in any bowfishing tournaments?
Yeah, actually, we fished quite a few tournaments in Minnesota. From my place, I live right on the interstate, and so it's only an hour for me to get to the Mississippi River.
Oh, sure. Wow.
That's one of our favorite places to shoot is over there. John Laska out of Minnesota runs a really nice series over there. Each tournament has a little different format. They're a lot of fun. It's a bunch of good guys. They're not huge tournaments. They're 20-boat tournaments. But one of them's held out of... actually, I think the weigh-ins are all held out of Winona.
Yes.
But... one of them is part of Iowa, and then they come up, and they all... One of them's dogfish, one of them's buffs, one of them you have to have 5 gar in order to weigh in.
So he mixes it up a little bit. You just can't go after just carp.
No, and one of the tournaments this year was a small... Might have been like a small 15 or something like that. And actually, Johnny Hevel from John's Custom Bowfishing Boats shot with us. And We came in with like 300 pounds in this small 15 tournament. We had found some really big gar a couple weeks before that. In fact, we broke the state record. We would have broke the state record 3 times in one night, but we shot the biggest one first.
Okay.
But we shot 3 fish that night that were bigger than the pre-existing gar.
Wow. 3 in one night.
3 in one night. And
wow.
In fact, we come back to the tournament that night. I believe we had 150 some pounds of others.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy.
That is very cool.
Bonus fish.
And we also I went to Oklahoma last year and shot a tournament on the Grand River. It was called Grand River Monsters. And
yes.
we went down there and shot a bunch of 6-pound buffs. But that was a lot of fun. Adam Taboyak and Dustin Bursky went with me, and it was a good trip.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that trip. You had a good time. And you went down there because of the points, also points for Bowfishing Team of the Year.
I did. I went down because I knew that it was supposed to be a big tournament, and I could score a lot of points, and Dustin and Adam and Noah went with me, and it was neat to shoot it's always fun to go to a new body of water and see if you can't figure it out.
Absolutely.
The biggest mistake we made on that tournament was they allow you to shoot the night before the tournament. And so we did.
And you didn't shoot. Did you shoot a big one?
We shot a lot of nice. Not nice for what we're used to. Sure. But still, we shot a lot. We figured that we were running about a 15, 16 pound average. And it was so funny because we were having trouble with my outboard, and we stopped at a parts store, and a guy seen us in there, and he come out and started talking about the tournament. He goes, "You guys here for the tournament?" "Yeah." He says, "It's going to be rough." He says, "It's going to be rough. 8-pound average is going to win it." And we all kind of looked at each other like, "Oh, really?
Boy. Oh, wow."
Well, problem was apparently that lake doesn't reload, or it was just a really bad night because there was no big fish. There was still a lot of fish, some smallmouth buffs, a lot of them.
But nothing like the night when you were...
I don't think we shot a fish over like 11 pounds,
And that's a carp?
Yeah.
Wow.
They were buffs. They were buffs. Little buffs, yeah.
All right.
The funny thing about that tournament is there's no pre-registration. It's Big 20 only.
Okay.
And it was $20 per person to enter the tournament. However many people are on your boat. Yep. That's how you do it. And it was a massive thunderstorm for about 3 hours before the tournament, and right up for the first couple hours of the tournament. 51 boats.
Oh, wow.
Showed up and signed up for that tournament. The guy told me there'd have been close to 100 if it wouldn't have been for the weather.
That's great for not having to pre-register.
Yeah. Yes. He said they don't pre-register for their tournaments, and that lake actually has big grassies in it. We were kind of hoping. We did see one, but we didn't get a shot at it.
Okay, sure. So you've shot in 2 other states besides Wisconsin for tournaments?
Well, Iowa, Minnesota, and Oklahoma. I have shot.
I was gonna say, have you shot other states besides just shooting tournaments? Just going down
I went on a trip. I went on a trip down to Kentucky one time.
Oh yeah.
In fact, I had to call you while we were down there. We had been down there for a couple days and hadn't seen a big head.
Yeah, the elusive big head.
Yeah, and that's a cool story. You sent me a map with a pin on it.
Yeah,
and kind of had to make a promise that I wouldn't show anybody that spot. And of course, I had 2 other guys with me. The president of the WBA at the time, Jeb, was with me, and Eric Coggin was with me. And we decided to run over to this spot. And as we're going down the river, I had my phone on with the screenshot of the pin. And Eric had his phone on. We were both on the Google Maps, and we're going down the river, and I'm like, turn left right here. And he turned the boat left, and I said, shut the motor down. And I could see we were literally coming right onto your little pin that you had on the river. We shut the boat down, got up on the deck, flipped the lights on, and right there, we all three got a shot at it.
Oh, wow.
It was literally on top of your pin, right on that corner.
See, I do help people once in a while.
Yep.
And just so you know, about 2 minutes after that, I deleted the picture and the message off my phone.
I remember, I don't know if it was you that called me or sent me a text or Eric. But I know you sent me a picture with a big and you said, hey, man, thanks a lot. This is my first big. And I was like, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
Right there. Yep. That's what it's all about. It's a cool deal. You drive that far, you want to get an opportunity. You're driving 12 hours to go bow fishing.
Yeah.
And you shot your big heads. And that's a cool thing, I think.
Absolutely.
To help somebody out and give them a little advice once in a while in bow fishing.
As long as they hold up their end and they delete that pin or that picture.
And then Jody did.
Yep, absolutely. One cool thing that you do, Jody, you've been shooting with Tess and Slimer for a long time, and they were young kids when they started bow fishing. How did that start?
At the time that I started nighttime bow fishing was when Tess was that age when her and I were doing everything together, and Slimer was just a local kid that I knew. I know his parents, who we've been friends forever, and I'm involved in an organization called CAMO. It's KAMO. It stands for Kids and Mentors Outdoors.
Wow, awesome.
Cool deal.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if it's just my way of feeling younger, but I always have kids with me, and to me that just makes it easier to go and do it.
Sure, right.
You just always have the kids along, and they enjoy it.
And for those out there that don't know, Tess at the time was in probably her freshman year, or
Yeah, she was probably younger than that.
Yeah.
Tess is a senior now.
She's a senior now, so Tess was probably 13 years old.
Slimer started trapping with me when he was really little. And so did Tess and Noah. Of course, Noah's not a kid anymore.
Right. But it's a cool deal. I mean, so when you started going to these tournaments, you had Tess, you had Noah, and Slimer, and they were all in their early teens.
Yeah.
So that's
that actually, you probably, I don't know whether you remember this or not, you and I had a couple conversations about this because of your AMS Big 30 tournament.
Yes.
It was a 3-man team.
Yes.
And it made it hard for me because Tess and Slimer were my team, and because it was only a 3-man team, I had to do all the driving.
Right. Right.
And it limited. In fact, the one year I had that surgery on my leg and my foot, and so not only was I doing all the driving, but I couldn't do a whole lot on the boat. That's the year that Tess and Slimer really got it figured out. We were shooting your tournament that night in really hazardous conditions, and we were on really big fish, and I popped the stitches in my foot that night. We had to motor back across the lake. Tess had to run like 200-300 yards up to my truck to get my boot that I was supposed to be wearing. My crutches, but we put a bunch of fish in the boat that night, and Tess and Slimer literally put every one of them fish in the boat.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
I shot some of them, but they put them in the boat.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. I remember taking some pictures of Tess and Slimer holding those fish up.
That was in Toma when you had it at that time.
Yep.
And I remember Slimer because we were in 6th place for the longest time. And Slimer kept pacing back and forth in front of that big board that you upgraded her, all on there. And I kept telling him, I was like, buddy, there's a lot of big boats coming in yet, and you know how it is in them big tournaments. The guys that think they got it won, they wait till the end anyway, But yeah, that was a good tournament. And it's just, to me, even last year, I had a kid on the boat every single tournament except for that Oklahoma tournament.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
And I use the kids a lot for scouting. there's a lot of kids in town. I couldn't even tell you how many kids are in town that go bow fishing with me. There's a lot of them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You guys don't get to see them because they don't make it to the tournament, but they're part of my team. They're the ones helping me scout. Even if it's just a ride along in the truck with me, if I'm running over to the Mississippi to check something out before a tournament, I call a couple kids up, and the parents and are really good about, they know that
they know what your deal is.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they, I tell them, you can sleep on the couch. I'll bring them home in the morning, or whatever, because how it is. A lot of times sun's coming up when you're coming home.
Mm-hmm.
So the kids, there's a lot of them that are part of the team that
we don't see.
The tournament guys don't get to see them kids.
Yeah. But no, I think that's such a cool thing, Jody, that you've been shooting these tournaments with, high school kids in your boat. I mean, that's a really cool deal. Hats off to you for getting them involved in the sport and shooting with them. Yeah. That's awesome.
I think, I don't know where I heard it, but this is across the board for hunting, fishing, bow fishing. The most important people in that sport is the next generation.
Absolutely.
To keep that sport growing and prospering.
Absolutely.
So I think that's awesome. You got kids in your boat all the time.
Heck yeah, that's awesome.
Next question. After taking second place in the Big 20 at the BAA Worlds here in Wisconsin, we saw you get a little emotional. Can you explain a little bit of that for us?
Well, I can try. That was a really cool tournament because that was 2015, and in that year it was a friend of mine and Tess and Slimer were our team, and the other friend of mine, the other adult, he could not shoot that tournament, and so we kind of didn't think we were going to shoot it. And the more I got thinking about it, I thought, we really need to do that. It might never be here again.
Right. In Wisconsin.
Just to go see what it's all about. At that time, I think we did maybe place once that year in a tournament before that. Just got lucky at some tournament or something.
Wow.
But I ended up talking to Danny, Slimer's dad. And asked him if he wanted to. Well, he's a farmer, and not a little farmer. They're cash croppers. They're busy.
Yep.
Well, they were combining wheat that week before the tournament, and I actually was putting up hay for my wife's horses, and so I'm like, if we do it, let's just go do it to be involved in it. Don't expect to do anything. Danny had never shot before. He had been on my boat one time, I think, just to see what this thing is.
Wow.
I'm taking Slimer out doing all the time.
Oh my gosh.
So he ended up agreeing to do it. Friday night, we took off, went over there. I said, we got to at least go find some fish.
Just go to one night.
Yeah.
One night for the Worlds here in Wisconsin.
I had a friend of mine who grew up on the Mississippi River, and we went out there and looked at a few spots. We actually got out just before it got dark and kind of looked at the lay of the water there, and we found a few fish, and we were trying to get to another spot and didn't realize that you couldn't get across this big area out there. Well, we ended up using the fan. In fact, I had your old boat then.
Yep.
That was that old
the tracker.
That
Tracker
1860.
Yep.
Yeah. And all of a sudden we come on this big flat, and it was just loaded with these big fish.
Wow.
And I said, we got to get out of here. We don't want anybody to see us monkeying around out here.
Turn the lights off.
Yeah, let's go. So we went, and obviously the next day we stayed in a motel down there, and the next day we went and down to Cabela's there and signed up for the tournament, and walked around looking at all the boats. We didn't really know hardly anybody. We knew a few of the guys from the WBA and knew you, and I kept telling them on the way there, and of course it was a pretty good drive from Prairie du Chien to where we ended up fishing, and I kept telling them we're following all these boats down the road.
Don't you hate that?
And the kids are like, are they going to the same spot? Because I had told them, hey, so these are the best around. We're not the only ones that found them fish.
Yep.
So we get to the boat launch, and sure enough, there's 9 trucks there.
Oh, boy.
Oh, man.
And we're the last one because we didn't pre-register for the tournament or nothing. And we're putting in, and we had met this guy that had a campground there, and I asked him, I said, well, where'd all them boats go? And he goes, they all went north but one. He went south. and we were going south. And so we headed south, and I said to Tess and Simon, I said, get up there on that deck and look and see if you can see that boat. And it was a big black airboat.
Yep.
And they saw it, and he was staged about a half mile upstream from where we had found them big fish the night before.
Yep.
And so we went about a half mile downstream, and of course we're all sitting out there waiting for it to get dark.
Right.
Nobody wants to go in on your spot, you know. And you don't really want to go that way because you don't want him, you know. You're thinking about all kinds of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So it got dark, and we started moving around in there, and them fish were still there.
Wow, cool.
And
still there.
We started shooting them, and in fact, I remember Simon Slimer shot the biggest fish of the night, and it wasn't huge. It was a 24-pounder or something like that. We just put that in the boat, and I got a text from Jeb and Coggin wanting to know how we were doing.
Yeah.
You know? And I said, hey, we just put our 20th big fish in the boat, you know. We're sitting on a sandbar here taking a break, and I could tell by his non-response that they weren't really
having troubles.
So we fished all night, and it turns out that airboat that was there, they were some southern boys.
Yep.
And they were really good to us because they could have pushed us off that spot really easy if they wanted to with that boat they had, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But they didn't. They kept about a half mile away from us the whole night, and you know, as it turned out, they took first place.
Right.
We took
right.
second place, so we were on the right fish.
And that just goes to show what people can do. You didn't know that guy in the airboat, and he didn't know you. Mm-mm. But yet you can work together.
In fact, I felt bad because everything kind of happened so fast then after that, you know, you get back to the weigh-in, blah, blah, blah. And I never even got a chance to talk to them guys. I did end up connecting with them on social media afterwards and thanking them for
that was cool.
Not being pushy or anything.
Right. Mm-hmm. But that just goes to show how you can work together.
Yeah.
And look at, he finished first and you finished second.
Yeah.
And you stayed your distances, so that's a cool deal for tournaments.
Yeah. We got back to the boat launch, and we were running short on time. And of course, as you know, on the Mississippi, you're on the wrong side of the railroad tracks. Mm-hmm. You're always nervous about that because you got to get across the railroad tracks to get out to the highway. And I mean, we were literally getting about 5-6 minutes is about how much leeway we had here. And Tess and Slimer,
not enough for a train stop, was it?
No. Tess and Slimer up there weighing the fish and trying to get them somewhat sorted, you know, and cleaning the boat, getting the weeds out of the boat and stuff like that. And we're heading back to Cabela's, and we pull in the parking lot and get in line to weigh in, and everybody we're watching everybody, you know, we're really new at this, and everybody's walking from boat to boat and looking in everybody's boat, and everybody just walked right on by us. In fact, you were the only person, Matt, that stopped and looked in our boat.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then you come up to the window of the truck.
Yep.
And you said, you're going to win this.
Oh, man.
And I knew better because I knew that black airboat was behind me.
Yep.
And I had talked to them guys at the ramp, and I knew they had us beat by a couple pounds of fish, you know. And so anyway, to kind of get to your question, obviously I've been avoiding that.
I think it was a cool part of the tournament. Oh, yeah. I think it was a cool deal.
So we were all sitting there, and by that, we were sitting there in the little lean-to tent or whatever you want to call it, and everybody's waiting for the awards. So, by that time, I knew we had got second place.
Right.
But I hadn't told anybody yet. I hadn't told Danny, Simon, or Tess. And I was sitting there looking at Tess and at Simon, and I was wondering what they're thinking. You know? Everybody's tired. You know, I don't know if they're grasping what's about to happen.
Sure.
You know? And right then is when I realized they're going to remember this.
Absolutely.
And the reason I knew that is because when I was a kid, I had an uncle that he did everything with me. Yep. He took me fishing. My dad was always busy. He owned his own business. Well, in 1982, while him and I were elk hunting, he got killed. He got struck by lightning.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And I remembered that while I was sitting there looking at Tess and Simon,
Sure.
knowing, of course, they're going to remember this,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so I hope they do.
Absolutely.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
It was
Absolutely.
it was really cool. And I had to tell Danny because I wanted the kids to have our Chasing Scales shirts. That year Simon had designed these shirts on the internet.
Okay.
And we had these Chasing Scales, and on the back it said yee yee. You know? And I told Danny, I said, you might want to go take Tess and Simon over to the truck and have them put their Chasing Scales shirts on. And
Cool.
Danny kind of looked at me and he goes, yeah, I said, I think we got second place.
Oh my
You know?
gosh.
And he's like, no way. I'm like, yeah, I think so. So it was really cool. And you know what? At the time, we didn't know any of them people. I mean, I knew Tony and you guys. And
Yeah.
I knew Jeb and I knew Eric a little bit. But so no, it was a really cool deal. And that whole deal with my uncle is probably the real reason why I do as much stuff as I do.
That's awesome. That's an awesome story.
That is. I have
an awesome story.
I have goosebumps.
Yeah.
That was just an amazing. The way you told it was just spectacular.
Absolutely. And I remember that, Jody. I remember we were underneath, like you said, that tent down there.
Yeah.
And I remember they were going through and listing out the winners and stuff. And I remember, and I saw you and how emotional you got, and I knew that your heart was into this.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Well,
and
what
that's a
made
cool
it
thing.
what made it even better was the decision to ask Danny.
Yes.
So it was father, daughter, father, son.
Right.
You know, otherwise, and it would have been awesome if Andrew, our other partner, could have done it too, but it was even better that it was Danny.
Wow, that's
You know?
awesome.
And obviously, Danny's been hooked ever since.
Yes,
know?
I see him all the time now.
Yeah.
But that's just such a cool story.
That
you
is.
know?
That's awesome.
You know, you were saying that you hope that Tess and Slam remember that. I remember that. You know, I remember that moment,
Right. Yeah.
seeing you and what that meant for you to do that well. So hats off again to you, Jody, for doing that. That's just,
yeah, absolutely.
That's just awesome.
Yep.
That's just totally awesome.
Yeah. Well, Jody, we know that you put your time in scouting and preparing for tournaments. Take us through the weeks leading up to the 2018 AMS Big 20 tournament and just how you went about preparing yourself for that tournament.
First of all, how many miles did you put on?
A lot.
A lot.
There was 2 oil changes involved
Oh my goodness.
in the week. 8 days. I call it 8 days. It actually was more than that because anybody that tries to compete in them bigger tournaments, they're already thinking about. They've already looked at the date that you got set.
Right.
And, and there's a lot of different things you can do. You know, you look back at some pictures or you look back at tournament results. Last year's particular tournament, the weekend before that, actually 2 weekends before that, there was a big tournament that was a statewide tournament.
Wisconsin Open.
Yep. Carpzilla or the Wisconsin Open. And we had done a fair amount of scouting for that. Ended up on Green Bay. A storm kind of messed us up there, but still shot some nice fish, you know.
Yeah.
Well, and the next weekend was the WBA Green Bay tournament. And I said to Noah, I'm like, you know, we really don't need to scout Green Bay.
Right.
I mean, Green Bay's Green Bay. It's either going to be good or it's not for a WBA tournament anyway. So we took that night, the Friday night before that tournament, to scout a couple spots for the AMS, just to kind of get a feel for what was going on in a couple different spots in the state, you know. And,
Sure.
And then we shot the tournament, the WBA tournament, which actually ended up being a really good tournament. Just knowing I shot, we had actually scouted. We got back to Green Bay that night at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and we went out and just did a little quick run. Never saw a fish. In fact, we run into the Peas and Jab, and nobody was seeing any fish. We went to the motel and slept. Next day we got up, did some day scouting, trying to see what was going on out there. And about 5:30 that night of the WBA tournament, we literally saw these big fish swimming in from the lake and swimming
Really?
in. And we knew nobody else had seen them because they were just coming in.
Yeah,
you
right.
know.
A fresh batch.
Yeah, and so Noah and I actually we took second in that tournament also. Second was our deal last year. Well, actually, going back to the Worlds, that second must have been.
Yep.
But so then after that tournament, you sit down on Monday and Sunday, you're resting. Monday, you try and figure out what you're going to do. And I ended up scouting 31 different bodies of water.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, my gosh.
For that tournament. And what,
Hold on 1 second there. Did you all hear that? Yeah. That was 31 lakes that Jody scouted for the AMS Big 20.
I don't know if I've bowfished on 31 lakes total, and you were just scouting those bodies of water. That's dedication right there.
But some of that is, and maybe it's a lake you've been on before, and so it don't take you very long.
Right,
sure.
You zoom over there, you hop up on the deck, you make a tour, through your best weed bed, and you look at what's there, you got an idea. And like I tell people, a lot of scouting isn't trying to find your fish, it's trying to figure out what everybody else is on.
Right. Absolutely.
And obviously with last year's tournament, you had to kind of know what was going on all over because of the storm that ended up coming through.
Yes.
And the other thing that we do really well, and Danny helps out a lot with this, is the equipment.
Okay.
You got to have your equipment ready to go,
rock and roll.
And if, depending what kind of equipment you're using, on a tournament, you're probably better off having two.
Right.
Because you don't have time to fix it.
Right.
Some of these tournaments, I literally have a schedule written out. If it's a tournament where I might be bouncing to 4 or 5 bodies of water in the same night, or 4 or 5 different spots on the same body of water, I know that, I got to be at this spot at this time, and I got to leave for this spot, and you don't have time to be fixing stuff.
Right.
But you better have the equipment with you, to fix your fan, or trolling motors are a big thing
lights
for guys. Yeah, lights. Have your boat wired so that you don't lose all your lights if something happens, or and your truck. Make sure your tournament.
Absolutely,
your tournament. You got to come back with the same truck you left on.
Yep.
In fact, I think if you look out the window, you can see the numbers still on the corner of my windshield that you paint on the window. And that's all part of our prep.
Right.
And that's part of where you look for the best equipment. You don't want your equipment breaking down.
And that's a great point, Jody. Is equipment not only in your boat and what you're shooting, your vehicle. Bearings in your trailer. That's all. You need to get back to weigh-ins for these big tournaments.
And you're driving down the interstate with, you're coming back to a tournament on a Sunday morning, and there's other families out on the road, and you need your vehicle to be trustworthy.
Right. And you're driving the speed limit on the interstates.
That's one thing I don't like it when guys do that.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy sometimes after some tournaments.
And it's unnecessary, especially in these long tournaments.
Right.
Yep. I mean, your tournament last year, we drove 4 hours to get to where we were going.
Oh, my gosh.
So a lot of things can go wrong in that time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I guess my point there is driving like an idiot leaving Marshfield is really not very smart, because you're going to be driving for another 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it is for a lot of them guys anyway.
Sure.
It's better to be safe.
So, one question for you, Jody. I know we have this when we're shooting a lot of big tournaments. We have a routine when we get the boat landing, whose job is to do what, so we can get the boat off the trailer and into the water and the vehicle parked, and we can leave as quick as possible. Everybody kind of has a job. Do you guys have that with
well, with us it's pretty easy, because Danny and I are the only two that have driver's license.
Sure.
But Danny's a farmer. He can back that trailer in really good.
Yep.
We actually have a new option last year that helped a lot. I have lights mounted on the back of my boat that I can flip on, so that some of these boat launches that are not lit,
absolutely,
you can see to back that boat in, and that makes a big difference.
Absolutely.
If Danny can just back that sucker in, and I unload it and he's back off, parking the truck, versus 2 or 3 ins and outs to run around the truck and look because you can't see anything.
Right.
Some of the, especially on the Mississippi, some of them boat launches back in them things are...
And some are so steep.
They're steep, you lose the boat.
You can't see the boat, nothing.
Right. Or they're wooded.
Yes.
They're real dark and wooded. And yeah, that's very important to have that routine. Everybody, when they get in the boat, Simon's usually getting the reels and the arrows put on everybody's boat. Last year, Noah was a big part of our team, and he's always really good at getting the bows and all that stuff ready. And he knows what kind of tip everybody likes to shoot. We all kind of got our own tip that we shoot. And that works out good.
Sure. Do you study maps of lakes, Jody, or do you find it's more beneficial for, as yourself, you've got a lot of past history with lakes and bodies of water. You know where to go and look quick. Do you check out new areas, or do you just kind of stick with your what you know about those bodies of water?
That's one thing you catch yourself in, is wanting to always go back to the same spot.
Yes, exactly.
In fact, the spot that we did really well on the Worlds in 2015, that spot hasn't been very good since then.
No kidding.
And everything changes. The Mississippi this year was really difficult because the water was so high.
Right, yeah.
The weeds all grew so tall that when the water did go back down, nothing looked the same.
Right.
And I actually use a lot of Google Maps and stuff like that for scouting. I spend as much time looking at maps as I do at the body of water. One thing, that you look for a lot of time is clean water, and you can see that clean water on your Google Maps.
Right.
Absolutely. And then, you look for a spot that's got fish, and then you look for another spot that looks like that on the map.
Yes.
To find your spot.
I know just by you saying that, a couple years ago we were down shooting the BPS US Open in Missouri, and it was an odd year down there, and the lakes were like 25 feet above Summer Pool. So we were shooting, there's trees that we're driving over top of. And we found buffs, and exactly what you just said is, so we looked at our maps, and every spot that was like the spot that we found buffs in, we found buffs in those other spots too. So remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do a lot of day scouting, and you do that to see stuff that you can't see at night. Right. You get on a body of water you've never been on before, and all of a sudden you come up to a weed bed, or say it's a wild rice, and it looks like it goes for miles. But in reality, it's only 20, 30 yards wide, and on the other side of it, something really nice.
Big flat.
Well, at night, you're not going to be able to see that.
Right.
Yep. The other thing that I do scouting is I work with other teams. I mean, sometimes I go out and Josh Knutson, and I've gone with Josh quite a bit, where we just go out. We're looking for two totally different things because they're numbers guys, and we're not. Yep. Well, in fact, even for your tournament last year, we were on a lake in northern Wisconsin, and we were backing into this lake, and I looked, and there was Dave Wilhelm, Fred from F&D Archery's partner.
Yeah.
And he was all by himself. He was getting ready to put his boat in, and I'm like, Dave, I said, why don't you just get in with us?
Yeah.
This lake's not that big. We're all going to look at the same stuff anyway.
Right.
So either you're going to go out there and look at it after I've hit it, or I'm going to go look at it after you hit it.
Yeah.
Why not we just get in the same boat and we go look at it?
Sure.
That night, that was Wednesday before the tournament, Slimer shot his biggest common carp ever. And I believe Dave, if it wasn't his biggest, it was one. And they were both in the mid-30s.
Right. I remember you telling me that there was some big fish.
Yeah.
Big commons.
Wow.
Big commons.
That little lake, I could tell you a funny story about scouting. In 2016, when I was scouting for your tournament, I was over on the river, and I didn't have anybody to go scout with me that night. And I knew it was just going to be Tess and Slimer shooting the tournament with me. But I wanted to make sure them fish were still there. So I convinced my wife and Tess. I said, let's just run over there. From my house to the Mississippi River is an hour.
Yeah.
To get to this spot's an hour and 20 minutes.
Yep.
I said, let's just run over there. We'll make a quick sweep over that flat. Tess count the fish. I don't remember the number that night. We were maybe 25. I told her to count any fish over 25 that she thought, So we make this loop, and sure enough, there was them big fish were there. So we're going. I told the wife, we'll stop someplace and have something to eat or something,
Yeah.
And we're heading back up the river, heading back to the boat launch, and here comes a boat coming down the river, and he's flashing his lights at me. And I'm like, well, he obviously wants to talk to me. I had no idea who this guy was.
Yeah.
But we pull up next to him, and we grab onto each other's boat, and this guy calls himself the Bowfishing Guru or something like that.
Oh, wow.
He's got this carp scale tattoo on his arm, and we're talking, and we're, because we're on the river, we're floating down the river, and I'm every once in a while I'm looking at my phone, and we're literally floating right to my spot. And I'm like, I kind of knew who Corey is, but I didn't know him that well, know. And I didn't want to say, oh, heck, we got to go,
Yeah.
And so we're talking, and we all had our lights off. We're just floating down the river. It was a beautiful night out, And all of a sudden, I can hear these fish flopping around.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm looking at my phone, and we're right smack on top of my spot.
Still connected.
And we're still hanging on to each other's boat. And Corey Brosman reaches over, flips his lights on, and he goes, oh, look at these fish.
Oh, my gosh.
And I'm like, yeah. So we leave, and the next day when we get to Marshfield for the registration, Corey sees me, and he comes right over to the table.
Oh, yeah.
We got to talk, buddy. We got to talk. And he says, where we saw them fish last night, is that... I said, that's exactly where I'm starting.
Yep.
And he says, well, we have another spot that's just up from there. He says, we're going to start up there. But he says, I'm going to be honest with you. If it gets to be, 11, 12 o'clock and we don't have nothing going on, we're going to come down here. And I'm like, that's fine.
Yeah.
This is a big area,
Sure.
And that's the year Simon ended up getting sick.
Yeah.
And he ended up climbing underneath the deck, and Tess and I, we shot a bunch of fish, but after we shot like our third fish, we knew we were in trouble. They spawned out during the night.
They did. They did that.
And so we lost a bunch of weight, and sure enough, about 11 o'clock, here come Corey come down there. And it worked out good because if I remember right, he had his pontoon boat that year.
Yep.
And he couldn't get into the thick weeds with that trolling motor.
Sure.
And so we'd go over to thick weeds with the fan, and that would kind of push them fish out to the edge, and we were kind of chasing them. We went around in circles for a few hours like that, and it worked out real well. Neither one of us placed in the tournament, but we were definitely both of us in the top third. And
Yep. I know Corey. I remember Corey was doing a little filming while he was down there also, and he was sending me pictures of these comments.
Oh, during the day, it's crazy.
During the daytime, it was nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, look at this. He sent me a picture of like a 35 just plump full of eggs. And I'm like, ooh, boy, that's a good fish.
So to finish that story with Corey, now in the last 2-3 years, we always seem to end up on the same body of water. So I'm pretty sure...
Are you sure you didn't put a tracking device?
No, I think Mr. Schillinger over here is kind of giving him the key on this little lake that I was just talking about up in northern Wisconsin. I'm driving up there, and Corey calls me, and he says, hey, have you been down to the river yet? And I said, yeah, I've been down there a couple nights this week. He said, well, it's not very good tonight. And he was right. Thursday night, all of a sudden, all them big fish that everybody had on the Mississippi disappeared. They just were gone.
Yep.
And so he goes, yeah, me and Al, here we're heading to another lake. He says, you ever hear of such and such a lake? And I'm like, are you kidding me? That's exactly where we're going right now.
Gosh.
You know, I told him, I said, there's 15,000 named lakes in the state of Wisconsin, and you're going to the same 200-acre lake I am. You know, so it was pretty funny. And then last year, I told you 31 lakes I scouted. And the night of the tournament, we went to a lake that I hadn't scouted.
Oh, right.
Wow.
Yeah. Out of 31 lakes that you scouted, you didn't go to this lake, and you finished second place last year in the Big 20.
Yeah.
Oh, my Lord.
By 4 pounds or something.
That's awesome.
And we should have made one more pass, and we weighed a 16-pound fish. So we needed one more.
That was your smallest fish, was a 16-pounder? Okay.
We needed one more 20, and if we'd have made one more pass, we probably would have got it. But as you remember, my outboard had blown up on Wednesday, and I wasn't sure if it was going to make it back to the boat launch with that big load of fish in it or not. And so I said, we got to go. We got to go. You know, it's a pretty long boat ride across that to get back to the boat landing. And if the motor blew up, I had my kicker, which we could have got across there. Yeah, we had plenty of time because if you remember, you
stopped here and took a picture of the shop.
We stopped in the parking lot and took a picture out in front of the...
That was cool.
Yeah.
That was cool. Yeah. Well, that was awesome, Jody.
Yeah,
we really had a blast having you here on the Bowfishing Buzz podcast.
Yeah.
It was great having you tell us these stories, and I think it's just awesome that you do a lot of work with the Wisconsin Bowfishing Association. Last year you were the secretary. This year you stepped up and you're the vice president.
I think I might have stepped down. The secretary this year.
That's got a lot.
It's got a lot of work.
A lot of work involved in that.
Yeah, we got a lot of good things going on with the WBA now.
Sure.
We have we're going to try something new this year with all our representatives. We're asking them to make contact with their local lake associations and try and rekindle them relationships.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
You know, that all of that stuff happened way before my time, even.
Right.
When the nighttime bow fishing first became legal, it's my understanding that it was lake associations are ones that helped get that done because they wanted something done with the carp.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've kind of let that relationship kind of go to the side a little bit. And as you all know, there's certain complaints that happen with bow fishing, and hopefully we can rekindle them relationships and help educate both sides on what needs to be done. Times change, you know, and hopefully get more people to join the Wisconsin Bowfishing Association.
For sure. That's awesome. You know, you do a ton of work and, you know, get involved with, I know every year when we have our AMS, you know, and Wisconsin Bowfishing Association youth event, you're always there every year to help take kids out. And just having, you know, your stories with Tess and Slimer in the boat and Noah, that's awesome. That's really a neat deal that you take them kids to those tournaments. They're going to remember that forever. They will. You know?
Absolutely.
That's just awesome. And once again, congratulations, Jody, on the 2018 Wisconsin Bowfishing Association Team of the Year in the Big 30 division. Thanks for being with us on the Bowfishing Buzz podcast, Jody.
All right. Thanks.
Wow is all I can say. I knew Jody was going to be a good guest to have on for the AMS Bowfishing Buzz podcast, but some of those stories gave me goosebumps.
That was pretty impressive.
I'm so glad he came in.
Yeah.
That was awesome. He's on his way back now. He's got how long of a drive?
He's got a little over an hour drive.
Yeah, and the freezing cold, negative 50-degree temps, but just amazing stories, some great insight too on tournament fishing as well.
Absolutely. And one thing that's really impressive with Jody, you heard him say it, he didn't start shooting tournaments until 2014.
I was actually shocked when I heard that.
Yes.
I was expecting, mid-2000s, 2010, but no, it wasn't that long ago.
No, and he has done just a great job competing in the Wisconsin Bowfishing Association tournaments. He puts his time in, he puts his travels in, just does a great job. And we hope that our guest enjoyed listening to Jody telling us about his stories. Tournaments from starting bowfishing in 1960s.
Yeah, that semi-story? Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
That's pretty awesome.
Oh, very cool.
Pretty awesome.
Very cool.
But all of us here at the Bowfishing Buzz podcast hope you enjoyed episode 3 of season 1 here, Tournament Talk. We're actually going to talk about more tournaments in this here podcast, but what do we do?
We got so enthralled listening to Jody that I kind of forgot about the second part of the podcast.
Absolutely.
So maybe next week or whenever we do another one, it'll be Tournaments 2.0.
Absolutely.
Another one about tournaments.
Another one about tournaments, because we didn't even get into our second part of the tournament talk. So this is coming up on episode 4.
Can't wait. That was a blast listening to him talk. I love doing these, so I can't wait for the next one.
Absolutely. So, from the Bowfishing Buzz podcast presented by AMS Bowfishing, we hope you enjoyed this episode. We will see you on episode 4.
Thanks for listening, guys.